Attunement.
I did an A. So, let's see, a couple things. I think we mentioned about the meditation tomorrow. And, yeah. So, did any of you get to read the chapter on Attunement? So, any thoughts that came from that you'd like to bring out?
The part of, that sticks out to me in that chapter is when he talks about disciples or devotees like getting angry. I didn't come here to pour cement, you know, and just realizing that it's a whole process and it doesn't matter what it is. If it's causing you to become frustrated, it's your lesson, it's your opportunity to grow. It has nothing to do with the form, only with your experience of it. And if you're living with a veiled heart, the Guru is here to remove the veil from our heart. So it's a full process.
Yeah, this is an advantage we have of 12-part yuga and being renunciates in this day and age, because we're not hiding away in a monastery where we're just going to meditate and read our little, what do you call those books? That we read the missals.
Mhm.
What they're called? A missal? Or
Yeah.
something, yeah. And then walk up and down the balcony and read and the rosary. Yeah, the rosary. Yeah, those things are good, but yet there needs to be a larger format for the human being to really have their karma, our karma,
Well, that's what,
awakened.
when somebody else is in a mood and you're around them and you feel like you're in a mood, but it's easy to kind of detach from that mood because you know it didn't happen until so-and-so came around. You know, but even practicing not enlivening those lower downpull energies, like, will get you ready to do it when it's of your energy field, you know, of your karma, if you want to call it that. So it's just, it's all guru.
Yeah, and community really awakens our karma for us. Yeah.
It's 12,000 years of darkening, you know, it really is, sounds kind of,
Like a lot.
yeah, it really is. You know, a lot of crevices in the
Yeah.
stuff of the mind, it's ready to light, it's ready to shine in.
And now we're
The upward,
yeah, when you're up in upward flow, now all that has to be neutralized and bring light in to illuminate.
But light shines in it. In 12,000 years of habit,
Yeah,
the
a lot can-
creatures hiding out from the light.
a lot can happen.
Don't be tracked down by those guys. They'll see the light when they do. Keep to go.
Any thoughts from Mark and Jeremy?
I did.
The thing that just was the same idea as what you were talking about is that everything is divine, and that helps me, excuse me, practice the presence of God throughout the day. You know, that whatever you're doing, everything is
Living
divine.
spirit.
Whatever.
Yeah, this situation, that circumstance, wherever I am,
Mhm.
it's part of the divine, and it's unique for us.
Mhm.
And,
Even the part that is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Especially that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's what, in some of what this chapter is about, how negativity is so detrimental.
Mhm.
And this whole, I don't know if you remember the story where Swami was getting drawn into this group of monks who were, they wanted to reform, they wanted to organize, and the energy of the magnetism of that, and Swami realized that he was just out of tune and drawn into that energy. And so but it's a blessing because he was able to learn through it, and who knows what the other folks got out of it. And some of them left eventually too.
I can really understand not repeating something negative, but what I don't know for sure is like, what's the right path for the difference between putting your head in the sand and listening to the news maybe once or twice a week. I mean, it seems like there's some obligation because we're walking on this earth to know what's going on out there and to have some responsibility.
Yeah.
But yet, inundating yourself with it is, it doesn't feel right.
Well, what if we say, okay, here's the news, here's what's going on, and I see, the effect it's having on the world, and you just send omens. And you're empowering spirit for these situations, and just praying for the highest good for what's happening in the world, because you're not gonna be able to do anything. Usually, you're not able to. But you see that your energy is now turned positive, instead of being, drawing that into you, you're shifting that, and taking that energy and you're sending it out to the world as light. That's powerful. And we do it with interactions we have that are uncomfortable or disharmonious, Master's Prayer, Peace and Harmony Prayer, those things. It shifts the energy. We were talking today in our class, we have covering this book, Mystifying Patanjali, and when Swamiji was in the middle of a lawsuit with SRF and other things that was going on, it was a difficult time because he was told he couldn't defend himself, he couldn't whatever went on and on. And so that energy came to him, so he has that energy coming to him, so for us, for example, energy of negativity or something coming towards us. So what do we do with that? Which way do we go? So Swami wrote 2 albums. He went and wrote music. So he took that energy and he went and wrote Windows in the World. And also he wrote Korean,
Is that the name of the book?
That's the name of the album,
Oh.
Windows on the World. And he wrote and recorded Kriyananda Chants Yogananda, those 2 albums. So that's what, for us, the same idea, the energy comes, and we, as devotees of Master, and our attunement, and the depth we have of knowing that we are aware of the energy we're experiencing, and we feel it's taking our consciousness down, we switch it. And you've probably read in other places where Swamiji was feeling really, really tired, and he started to get negative. He said, okay, sit in the meditation room, focus here with intense energy. He said in 5 minutes, the mood was gone. So there's a tool. You just take the energy that's happening and you shift it in a different way, because it's energy. So the secret, of course, is awareness. That you feel your attunement and your connection with Master is like, well, where is it? Because I'm in this other space of emotion and feeling, and I've lost, severed the connection by emotion and ego. So that whole process of us shifting that energy, it affects our magnetism as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we're not drawing to us these things, but it's it's nice to know what's going on in the world, and you can see it, and you send energy to it to the highest good. And we have a system now of the media that loves to just get in there and bring out the worst of everything instead of. So it's interesting because. If you think back, I think maybe some of you who are maybe more my age, we had TV shows when we were growing up. Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, and all these shows. If you ever watch them, these are shows from the 50s, and early 60s maybe. But if you ever watch them, there's always a happy ending of whatever situation was happening with kids or the family or whatever, there was always a resolution that was always positive at the end.
Mhm.
And it was unintrusive, but it was, a learning thing. It was really great. That's why the TV shows were then. So, but now it's so different. So we have to put out more energy to keep our energy stronger.
Mhm.
Being in a place where we live, Grass Valley, Nevada City, the people who live around here are generally positive people. You'd have to be to live out where we live. In the cities, there's more opportunities for jobs and things and different levels of consciousness. But out here, we're on our own more. And you have to have some sort of, you might say, initiative and inspiration to, unless you're completely retired. But even then, you move towards mellow. You're quiet. So it's always positive things, so that energy is more supportive for us. There's other energy around too, but basically speaking, Nevada County has a real kind of positive aura about it, you might say.
I think it's more spirit-based, aura, we have this. Is we have to reach inside to find that. And we can't just, the system's gonna carry me with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find out, no, we have to go cut down the tree ourselves. It's not gonna be.
Yeah, there's self-employment.
So, we have to kind of draw on that spirit.
Yeah.
Draw upon what is our experience.
Well, that's the key, isn't it?
What I was noticing what you were saying is that the Yogananda said, I don't know if people know this, maybe, but he said that Sat Chit Ananda, it is being, consciousness, and experience when we are not God conscious. I mean, that's how it arises for us. There's the beingness of whole being, which we think of like, oh, I am. It's all egoic. We have that experience of being, not we're aware of it. And we have the experience of consciousness, and we have experience of experiencing that which consciousness gives us regarding being. But when we awaken, that experience begins to be recognized as joy. This direct experience of what pure consciousness, being present to what the real knowing is, that reveals the being that is everlasting. And that's when that experience gets transformed into joy.
What has to move from conception, or just the idea of that, like,
the nagging thing going on, like, what am I going to do about this thing where it's coming at me? The jury, and the judge, and the lawsuit. What do I do? Well, that experience, let's transform it into joy.
yeah, that's exactly what we need to do as well.
Music.
So we have to remove the thoughts of what our mind is saying into experience of the soul. So, because the mind is limited in what it can offer, but yet the mind can give us inspiration by bringing into our minds spiritual energy and spiritual truths and things like that. But yet, that's still on the surface of ego, because the soul doesn't relate to any of that. It's just pure consciousness. So it's like, the journey is like getting from those concepts into the reality of spirit. This is where the teachings come in for us, because there's a threefold being. We have to incorporate all the aspects of who we are in this process, just like you were saying about the cement. It's a whole process. Like I came here for samadhi, not cement.
Yeah.
But yet, cement is God too, so
Yeah.
and how do you relate to that? If your energy is pushing that away, you're pushing away God. Because God is saying, here's a cement, how are you going to look at it? Is it going to be like this, or it's going to be, thank you, gratitude?
What just came to me is like God said, find me in meditation, but know me in the world.
No,
It's like, that's what we kalpa, you know, not hide away and know God, but
Yeah.
go anywhere, go wherever God tells you to go.
Yeah, and that's God in your life,
Mm-hmm.
guiding you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ego says, well, you know, I feel like this is a good thing, but not that thing. You know, this is a circumstance, but not that circumstance. So any other thoughts before we?
I found this one place that I really liked. It was about creativity and expressing ourselves, and this one part says, for disciples, the surest way to express themselves creatively is to attune themselves to their guru's consciousness and to his wishes for them. His entire task is to speed his disciples on the path of self-unfoldment. That's really stuck out for me.
Yeah, that encapsulates
Mm.
a lot. In attunement, it's a universal aspect. It's a universal principle. Because, for example, if I'm working at a business and the people I work with are all supportive of what our product is or whatever it is, and we work together in helping this product to become known, the energy we put out together gives an attunement to each other in cooperation, and it could be, it's ego-based, but yet there's the energy flow of cooperation and harmony. So there is, quote, an attunement on that level. You see it in sports. I don't know if any of you are sports fans, but you know, like for example, football. I mean, if you ever watch football, it's like there's like 20 guys together out there, but yet there's these plays that they do, and they practice these over and over again for timing and for how to work together as a team to bring the ball to the other end of the field. So, but in doing that, there's an attunement that happens because you know if you watch some of it, sometimes it's amazing what can happen. And also, if you see children playing, there's just this lack of ego and just joyful connection that they have on another level. And this is what we're going towards in our, as devotees, is our attunement to the light, and specifically the vibration of Yogananda. So the attunement we're having is it's not at an ego level or a mental level. It can be reflected through our physical by feeling, but yet it's soul level. So it's the deepest attunement that's possible. So for example, as a community, we meditate together, and by doing that and serving together and following the same vibration in Master's teachings, we're in attunement with each other vibrationally, and that attunement relates into our own personal life as a devotee and our own personal self-realization and understanding of what that is for us. So there's a real power that happens, you know, in the spiritual community that boosts our attunement. And of course, there's our personal role of our personal relationship with the Guru. So we think of the Guru as a manifestation of God that we can actually personalize. That's part of it. Of course, it goes beyond that because you see the Guru's picture, and I don't know if you've ever had this experience. You'll be somewhere, maybe shopping or somewhere out in the world, and all of a sudden you see a picture of Yogananda, and makes your heart skip a beat. It's so powerful that vibration is permeating, the energy of that space. And so the Guru is a representation of God, giving us individually, specifically, what we need for working out our karma that helps us to free us to get closer to God. Because that's what Master says his role is to take you to God, not to me, he says, but to God. God is the guru. But there's the channel in between. It's like you were saying, George, it's like we're not there yet in the light. We're on our way, and we need the guru to guide us. So once we're there, meaning completely united in cosmic consciousness, what do we need? Do we need Kriya? Well, no. Do we need this book or that? No. So it all goes away. But the journey, the attunement to the vibration that carries us through grace and our self-effort, of course, is what brings us to these different stages of depth of evolution.
How would you, for me, attunement to the Guru, God and Guru, and it's we use the word trust sometimes, but trusting that, which leads to intuition. Intuition is believing that you are acting on behalf of God and Guru. So, but there's, there's a phase where, it's like false intuition. It's part of the evolution of your consciousness and the spiritual path, and and I get that. But it's one of those things. It's like intuition, trust your gut, whatever. It's one of those things where it's like, am I there yet? Is my intuition and attunement really real? Or is it my mind saying, oh yeah, that's intuition, that's a guru, and then you do something that's really not in alignment with what, with what his intentions were. I mean, you've obviously been on the path a long time, and at some point you have full faith that it's everything that comes to you in every situation, you act upon behalf of God and Guru, but did you ever, in hindsight, have certain steps where it's just like, oh, or is it just experience-based where, look, most of the time when I check in before I do this, it turned out to be the right thing. And other times, well, didn't. I mean, I don't know, can you explain that evolution, if you will?
Well, you're hoping that Master is going to guide you, and in the situation that you have, whatever it is. But it seems, and from what I've experienced, it seems that it's been a process. The more meditation and longer I've meditated, the more connected to that process I am. And the other part is that the mind becomes kind of a back seat to it, because the energy of what you're doing every day in everyday service becomes a flow, and so it isn't the mind that's kind of like running you. It's this flow, and in that flow, because there's no restriction of the ego or mind, what comes is just a reflection of the flow, which is
your natural state. It's the mind fighting your natural state.
Yeah, so there's not the conflict between the two diminishes, because when you first come on the path, well, some people are naturally intuitive. When you first come on the path, you're working with, I feel this should happen or that, for me to be happy or whatever. The mind governs those thoughts. And then as you surrender into a master's grace more and more, as you meditate more and more and feel his presence with you, the other part falls away in a sense that it doesn't mean that the mind is disengaged, but the mind reflects this process of ego refinement, where you know in your mind that feels right, because my heart is telling me that, in my mind had experience with this intuition, and the intuition is what it feels like. It feels like intuition. And it's part of this flow of the moment. So intuition isn't something we kind of ponder. It's like you have a flash of intuition. It's like, okay, is this something that I apply now in my life? Or is it something that I need to put off? For example, we have an intuitive flash about, I need to move to a new job, for example. And you're in the world and you need to move to a new job. And it's an intuitive feeling, very strong. So do you walk into the office of your boss and say, okay, I'm out of here? You have to go through the process, 2 weeks notice, do I have the money to be able to look for work? So reason comes in, but it's still based with the goal of the intuition. So the two are working together. It's not either or. That makes sense? Somewhat?
Well, it does logically, and that's probably one of my biggest challenges is logic and reason, you know, and that gets in the way of you know, obviously I'm trusting it more and more, and attunement is something that if you will, it becomes unconscious behavior. The more and more you practice it, the more and more you practice meditation and attunement with God and Guru, then it becomes, if you will, second nature, or the pure nature, actually. You know, but it's you know, in the heat of the moment, if you will, then the mind jumps in, but your heart says like, no, I don't think, you know, but you have to, but you act.
Yeah, this is
and
you have to move forward.
My experience, if I'm doing right direction, I feel joy. That's important. You have to feel joy. Yeah, if no joy, you shouldn't go there. I think so. And I feel joy, and I feel blessing. Yeah, that's my experience.
I think there's levels of joy also, right? And it's the deep joy that
Yes.
you're talking about.
Yeah,
May not
yeah, from up.
Yeah.
You know this. That's really true. Joy is it's really special. Yeah.
Well, once you get a taste of it,
Yeah.
and that's the whole thing. It's like you get little bits of it, and it's just like I want more of that. Well, how do I do that? And then
So with intuition, you develop it in your experience. It shows you that it's proved itself to work for you, and that's where faith comes into it. So it's part of the journey. Some people have just automatic intuition; they just know the truth, and others is different. Well, Swami talks about that in his talk we're going to listen to tonight, and it was interesting about thinking about this topic, you know, attunement. And so usually when we're going to have to relate, you know, the topic or give a class on it or discussion, that you know, we always prepare. So we listen to different things that help us to kind of convey what we feel would be important for that particular topic. So here I am, you know, thinking about it, and it's like that I come across a talk of Swami's. He covers it all. It's like, so why should I kind of try to reiterate Swami when he can say it better himself? Plus, what's beautiful, he integrates his stories of his personal life, his experiences in the ashram with it too. So it's about 40 minutes long. So it's longer than what we used to, but I think I find it inspiring. And he covers some of these things that we're actually talking about feeling where the response is and how to connect with our intuition and how to feel that master is guiding us in the best ways.
What's the specific name of the talk, just for?
I think it's Guru Discipleship.
That's what I think must have been difficult for Swamiji, is to have a being out there that you relate to externally, and yet your real attunement is so different from that.
that's what Swamiji talked about. He said that some people weren't able to grasp that because, and you look at the guru, it's like, well, he's there, you know, and he's saying these things, and so you're relating on this outward level, and sometimes Swamiji said that people would say, what do you say that for? That's dumb, you know. So they don't get it. So that was a real test in the ashram for people to take it inside and relate to the guru on this other level. And as you remember in this chapter at the very beginning where Swami's cousin, Sue, and her husband and Master and Swami were meeting together. So Sue says, you know, I hear so-and-so is your first disciple in America, and Master just like pulled back because it's sacred. It's not just dinner conversation. So that's where Master really shows how powerful that relationship is. It happens on this inner level. It's not something that you actually can define outwardly at all. So pretty special that way. And yeah. So, see if this thing is still on. So maybe not.
In my heart, absolutely. There's been no hesitation. I've doubted what it meant to be a guru. I've doubted what it meant to be a disciple. I've had many doubts, but never that doubt. I've always known absolutely that this was my path, my guru, and that this was the direction in which my salvation lay. Moreover, what I've found is, over the years, that when I have been more in tune with him, I have known progress, happiness, divine joy, and whenever I've been out of tune, I've known just the opposite. I have felt pain and lack of attunement, lack of inner harmony, and I've known that whatever I've gained that I can share with other people basically has come through his blessings. Now, that I have to say with qualifications, because nobody really learns anything from another person. And that's an important point for us to remember. We can only recognize things that we already know. I don't think Master taught me anything except a few facts that I didn't know. I don't think any of those of you who are here deeply and have been here for a long time and really put your hearts into this teaching, I don't think any of you have really learned. I've helped to recall to your memory things you knew already. I've said things in ways that made them more clear to you. But if you hadn't known it already, you wouldn't have recognized it, and it wouldn't have meant anything to you. You can say things that are true to people who haven't experienced it, and it will be as if you hadn't spoken. So I had that understanding, you have that understanding. All that the Guru did for me was clarify it and then add to it that further dimension of divine experience, inner.
So as we go along, if you feel there's something you'd like to, bring up, we're glad to do that. So, okay.
Without which all that knowledge is just useless. That's what I mean by he's given me everything I have, because the mental understanding, that's nothing. The good karma, well, okay, I worked for that. But it was he who awakened everything. It was he who enlivened my understanding, who gave me the experience to recognize truth. And so we come to what it really means to be a guru, to have a guru. The idea of a teacher who knows something is valid, but it's not enough when we're speaking of guru. A teacher is needed if you want to become good at whatever you're trying to accomplish. So, the great teachers transmit to us an intuitive attunement and awareness that is much more important than all the quotations and so on that we can come up with. We could throw the Bible away, as St. Francis gave away a Bible to a poor woman because he had nothing else to give her, a beggar woman. And then he prayed, God, to serve you I've given away your word. And he heard God's answer in his heart. I have planted my word in your heart. You don't need the scripture, you understand the meaning behind it. So, or when Master prayed to Jesus and asked him to be told whether he was interpreting his sayings correctly. And Jesus appeared, and the Holy Grail appeared at Jesus' lips and then passed to Master's lips. And Jesus said, the cup from which I drink, thou dost drink. He didn't say, now in Matthew 23, yeah, you did that pretty well, my son, okay. And then John 3:7, well, that'll do. I mean, it's possible, but perhaps what you said about Luke 3:15 was a little bit better, or more right on, or so on. He didn't waste time with all that stuff. They drank from the same cup, and so how could he not say the same things? That's what Jesus was saying. You're in tune with the same level of reality. How can it fail to understand what I was talking about? Because what I was saying was only an expression of what I was experiencing. And what you're writing is also an expression only of what you're experiencing. And the experience that we have is the same. So how can there be a difference? How can there be a real contradiction? Well, what the Guru teaches us then is in the same light of a transmittal of magnetism and energy that doesn't require that you be with the Guru a great deal. This is true, that being with the Guru helps in correcting you in different ways, but sooner or later he can get that message through to you anyway. He can appear in dream, he can enliven your consciousness, he can help you by this simple matter that if you're doing something that's contrary to his will, then you'll feel lack of attunement. And when you're doing something that is his will, you'll feel his endorsement on your thoughts. The more in tune you are, the more clear your guidance will be in that way. And so, the real thing is, as he said to me, there must be at least one contact. We were talking about the man that took initiation from him in Vrindavan, remember? 2 penniless boys in Vrindavan. And I asked him, did you ever see him again? And Master said no, but inwardly he's been in contact. And I think it was during that conversation, but I forget the actual flow of logic that led up to it, where Master said there must be at least one contact. But it wouldn't be necessary for him to be there after that contact, because Master had started he'd built the bridge. He'd opened the channel for his ray. And if the disciple continued to be in tune with that ray, then that guidance would continue to flow. And it's the power that he gives. As it says in the Bible, all those who received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. That power that is transmitted through the Guru, that is what the Guru really has to offer. And it's true that he's your bulwark if he's alive. He's able to give you many things if he can instruct you and tell you and so on. But many times those who are closest to the Guru don't gain a great deal. Perhaps in their familiarity they tend to listen less, I don't know. But there are also disciples who, living at a distance, receive a great deal. The important thing is the inner attunement. Obviously, if he's living and you're able to go see him and you don't, that means there's something fishy about your attunement. Because if you have the chance to go, you'll certainly do it. But if you don't have the chance to go, like that Professor Novitsky in Czechoslovakia who couldn't leave Czechoslovakia, Master was surely there helping him, as witnessed by the fact that when that communist informer came and with pretended devotion said, I want to study yoga from you, and Novitsky didn't know whether this man was a genuine seeker or not, and he prayed. And and he suddenly saw Master Yogananda standing behind him, shaking his head. So he didn't say anything. And later, it turned out that the man was a communist informer. He wasn't a sincere seeker. If he had said, "Oh yes, I'll be glad to teach you," and he started in on the teachings, then he would have died in prison. And so, the guidance of the Guru will certainly be there. It can be there under such circumstances, even in the case of Nowitzki, who never met him personally. But basically, what I've seen is that that contact is needed. Now, what does that mean to people who, like you all, can't? I'm the only person in this room who met Master. There are almost no people living now who knew Master. What do you do then? Do you run off to somebody else who advertises genuine guru in the papers and say, okay, but he says he's genuine. What do you do? What do you do if you feel this deep attunement with this path? I knew this was my way. And there was just absolutely no question. Well, many of you feel that. You know this is your way. But what do you do? Do you say, well, but all right, this way is closed now. I can't go this way because he's dead. And so I follow some other way? What we need to understand is the fact that even when Master was living, he appointed some of us to give initiation on his behalf to other people. It wasn't as if he did it all himself. Even people he was seeing personally, like Dick Hames, the well-known singer, was coming to Master for instruction. But then Master told me to give the techniques, and then when it came time for Dick to receive Kriya, he told me to give him Kriya. Well, I had to bless him. Master gave that blessing through me. And this is what I've observed, that this teaching is transmitted through individuals, and that power, as long as that contact is there, that power does flow. I've seen that those people who say, well, I want to go straight to the source, I want to go straight to Master, I don't want to bother with the disciples. What I've observed over the years is that they don't receive nearly as much. There's another aspect to it too, and that is that we gain if we serve him. And what I've found, for example, one of our members here at Ananda, he and his wife moved to Encinitas to be closer to the work there. But living in Encinitas, they weren't able to do any actual service in the ashram. They could only attend the satsangs, which they did as often as they could. And I went down there a year later and saw them. And I was really saddened to see that this man had lost a great deal spiritually. He didn't have the strength, he was weaker. And it was because here he was actively serving Master, where there he was only absorbing. So even in that holy environment, he wasn't gaining what he'd been gaining here in actively giving his energy to the Guru. So that too must be understood. But the most important thing of all is when I've gone around and I've met people who think, well, I don't need to have any direct contact with disciples because my link is directly with Yogananda and the line of gurus. What I have seen, invariably, I think, I'd have to think of all the thousands of people individually if I were to say it categorically. But I think it's invariable that they haven't gained as much as those that have been with disciples or with disciples of disciples, where the link is living and continuing to pass on, which means that the magnetism is there in a very real way. It's a curious thing. There are some Catholic saints. An example of that would be Teresa Neumann, who could receive the wafer in communion if it had been blessed by a priest. But if it hadn't been blessed by a priest, even if she didn't know that it hadn't been blessed by a priest, she would regurgitate it. She couldn't accept it. There is a certain kind of transfer, even going through seminaries and things like that. There is definitely a spiritual law of transfer. It's like a relay race where you pass the baton to somebody else, and it keeps on being passed. this divine power is the most important aspect of what the Guru really gives. And that power is something that germinates from within yourself. That power is something that can be transmitted. It can be transmitted more by those who have more to transmit. But if your destiny is to go in a particular way, Master said millions would find God through this way. And that's quite a statement. But I remember him saying, not just thousands, millions, I have seen it. He was saying through his Bhagavad Gita interpretations. But he meant the teaching, the power, all of it that went with it, not just the words in a book. That wouldn't give it to anybody. But this power is the power of the divine. And those who find this karmic link with that, this is the way through which the divine will work. If we had all been born in Master's lifetime, then how would this thing continue? It was necessary for us to be born at different times so that that message could continue. And each one of us needs to understand his role in transmitting that power on to other people. Again, those people who, you remember a passage in the autobiography where Master said that he had received Kriya initiation from his Sanskrit tutor, Kevalananda, from his father, and then from Sri Yukteswar. And he said neither his father nor Kevalananda had been able to give the same power that Sri Yukteswar was able to.